Jai Hind, ladies and gentlemen. Honorable Chief Minister Sawantji, other distinguished guests on the dais and off the dais, I take this moment as a proud privilege to be standing in front of you on the occasion of our revered late Honorable Manohar Parrikar ji, and I owe a lot to him in terms of what we could do for the service of the nation. And it is our fortune that Shri Manohar Parrikar ji came to Delhi, became the Defence Minister, and also a fortune that he selected a team of his, and with that team he was doing a lot of good for the nation. And again, it is my proud privilege to have been in that particular team. It is also creditable to see Finns having continued with the same zeal and enthusiasm, celebration of what our esteemed leader did, and the vision is not being allowed to get diluted. It is extremely important to continue meeting and fulfilling the dreams of a person who has left us. Shri Utpal Parrikar was very kind and generous in his introduction about me. I can, in my brief association with Shri Parrikar, just a few years, I can also give out a lot of things, but many moments are prized possession for most of us, and I would like to keep them like that. But at the same time, the topic which has been given to me is extremely important, and that was his vision. And Finns has worded the topic so well about Bharat defense, the indigenization, the status, prospects and challenges. Each word has a lot of meaning in that. The first part, when we say Bharat defense, I want to clarify here that Bharat defense doesn't necessarily pertain only to the Ministry of Defense. It is the defense of Bharat, and in which every citizen is responsible. So if indigenization is a campaign or an initiative which has been launched, and that too with the vision of some great leaders of this country, each citizen has to perform the kartavya of becoming self-reliant. The nation has to become self-reliant in many domains, multiple domains. A nation can retain its sovereignty provided we have economic power, we have political stability, you have human resource quantitatively and qualitatively strong and relevant, which is contemporary. We have to have energy security, water security, food security, agricultural security. I deliberately mentioned these separately because food has a different dimension and agriculture has a slightly different dimension which is connected to industry. So the industrial part, technological part, and now these days what is getting added is the environmental security as well. These are particularly relevant when we look at our identified adversaries. I have specifically said identified adversaries, that is China and Pakistan. But one has to be strategically conscious that in statecraft and in geopolitical interests, those who pose to be your friends today may not necessarily be your friends. So you have to be again on your own. And in our history, we have seen those who pose to be friends have become transactional, especially when there was a crisis. During 1947-48, we were fighting the raiders in Kashmir and also carrying out various operations in different parts of the country in the bid to integrate the various princely states with inherited weapons and technology and ammunition which we had got from the British, and those were the remnants of World War II military hardware. In 62 we suffered badly, and that kind of trauma continues with us, that kind of a defeat was just unacceptable. And we realized that whatever little help we were getting was a bit too little and too late. And that too from foreign countries who had their own access to grind. 1965 was another moment where it was not only the deficiency of military hardware which came up, but also problems related to food security came up. The Prime Minister had to go public and say that he as a Prime Minister would eat once a day, and he requested the citizens to at least have a fast once a week. That shows how difficult it is for a country to fight if you are not self-sufficient in food. We went into a lot of Soviet equipment because we had no choice. It was a compulsion with us. And today, when people say that the balance has tilted towards the Soviet inventory, the present day generation has to understand that there was no choice with the military but to opt for that. Technologically, it may have been a little inferior, but our human resource was so superior that we could make miracles happen with that kind of a technology. So that is the point where I bring human resource security also, whether it is at the lowest level or at the highest level. Qualitatively, we have to improve. Degrees are a thing of the past. Along with degrees, we need skills. And those contemporary skills again come up in the Atmanirbhar campaign. I mentioned about industrial and technological security. If we are dependent, and we are dependent on various nations, no nation will part with its best technology. You will get at least 2 or 3 notches below, and you have to make do with it, and you're not sure whether your adversaries are being given a notch higher than that. So we have to be clear what technology we need, and it has to be customized peculiarly for our requirement. There are naval officers here in the August gathering. They would support my version when I say that whatever naval equipment or sensors are manufactured by the West and they try to dump it on us, the condition of water in the Mediterranean or in the Atlantic is much different from the waters here. So that's the point that we have to come back to. Atmanirbhar is the only way out, no other way out. So when we come to the issue of what is the status of Atmanirbhar initiative, it is just a beginning, it is a journey, it has started. And it cannot be a one-man show. It has to be a team effort. Each and every individual in this country is involved in Atmanirbhar campaign, either as a designer, as a developer, as a producer, as a consumer, as an investor, or as an exporter. This is an entire chain. Without this chain fructifying, the campaign cannot be successful. Those in uniform may feel that military hardware is only meant for them. That's not true. If we are to utilize the technology which is meant for the military with civil and vice versa, with slight amount of differences, the scales of consumption increase, so the cost comes down and the profitability increases. That is the same thing which was done by the Americans, same thing being done by the Chinese. What they call as civil-military fusion is exactly what needs to be done. Fusion is one part. I think time has come for integration. Unless we integrate the results of technology which is available in the civil domain and what is available in the military domain, the progress will become lopsided. There are lots of lessons to be learned. It's not bad even to learn from your own adversary. There are many things which we have seen happening across the border in China. They have managed their funding concepts very well. What is given out in the budget in case of China for the defense budget, and every year practically they keep increasing the budget by 7 to 10%, at times even more. And that is what is the disclosed budget. But they have means of funding and adjusting their budget in a manner. The border area infrastructure which China creates, most of it is funded by the provincial budget. In our case, it is the defense budget, mostly. The military education, which is provided to Chinese people in uniform, men and women, a large amount of it gets funded through the educational budget. You know, these are ways of trying to see how research and development gets funded more. So jointly, civil and military have to go ahead for Atmanirbhar initiative as well. I agree with all that has been said by the Honorable Minister, Honorable Chief Minister, Honorable Governor also, that we have talent, we have tremendous amount of potential. It's only a question of synergizing to get the best possible impact. All of us have to contribute, but the government has taken a lead. The government's intent is very clear. What has the government done? In the last few years, in 2016, the defense procurement policy of 2016, which our revered Manohar Parrikar ji was instrumental in putting together, and he had to face a lot of, not protest or angst, I would say, but he had to work very hard to get that document out. He realized that there was a lot of pulling and pushing in different directions. There wasn't any one single body of the people who are working in the defense sector, especially in the private sector. So he got the people together and he said, why don't you come and create a body? And that is how Society of Indian Defense Manufacturers, SIDM, got established with his initiative. And at least now you have one place to talk to. And when I went to Nigeria leading a delegation, I took the public sector people, also representatives from the SIDM. And when we made presentations to the Nigerian government, it was both public and private sector talking together, giving the best possible solutions which India had to offer Nigeria. So again, the point comes up, work together, work as a team, and develop the nation together. After that 2016 document, the government went ahead, learning from various lessons as we traveled on that journey, and defense acquisition procedure of 2020 came up. That's yet one more step. The kind of changes that have come up, where foreign direct investment by direct route 74% has come in, the policy decision of the government that Def Expo, which happened in Gandhinagar, foreign entities were not given any place to display their wares. It was only Indian companies which displayed their wares, which was a very big signal. a certain percentage of the budget has been set aside to buy from private defense manufacturers. Such kind of segregation was never done. Our imports have reduced. At one stage, for some weird reason, we used to pride ourselves by saying we are the largest importer. That's not something to be proud of, but we had no other option at that time. Now we are not only reducing our imports, but we are increasing our exports. You go to the MOD website and you see how we are increasing our exports, but the hunger is still alive in us that we want to export more and more. The Prime Minister gave a vision as a part of the $5 trillion economy that he's looking by 2025. He wants defense exports to reach $5 billion worth. It's still far off, but the pace at which we are moving is quite good, quite healthy. What all have we tried to indigenize? It's a huge range of things that we have indigenized, and we are continuing to increase the indigenous content, whether it is a tank, whether it is a artillery gun, whether it is missile, BrahMos missile, anti-aircraft missile, submarine, ships, all-terrain vehicles, software-defined radio, you name a thing, and we have gone full pelt into that, and gradually we are increasing the indigenous content both by cost as well as component. For the first time in these 75 years, on 15th August at Red Fort, when the 21 gun salute was to be given, the gun salute was given by the Indian artillery gun manufactured by DRDO, Tata and Bharat Forge. It has taken us 75 years, but there is a lot of hope now, because with this artillery gun, 155mm ATAGS as it is known, we will be able to transform our entire artillery with 155mm guns, which is an extremely good achievement, and it doesn't stop there. We are already getting orders from foreign countries where they want these guns. BrahMos missiles we are already selling to Philippines. Saudi Arabia is also looking at our weaponry as well as wanting us to establish ammunition factories there. Sri Lanka wants the same thing. There are many countries which have desired to collaborate with us either as customers or co-partners. We invited 53 African defense ministers during the DEF Expo in October, and now by the end of this month there are army chiefs from African nations coming to Pune, and they will again give out what is the wish list, what do they want to buy from us. The more we manufacture, the more we introduce in our armed forces, the more we will be able to export. And when we export, it becomes a relationship of lifetime. Take an example, you sell a rifle to any country, you remember it's not a one-time sale because the weapon has been sold once, but the ammunition will go every year. So that is the kind of dependence, or that is the kind of relationship that gets established, and this particular campaign continues to move ahead. There are plenty of things which are given in open source media as regards the status is concerned. I would like to move ahead due to paucity of time onto what are the prospects and what are the challenges. Other than the exports, there is a large amount of inventory which has to undergo change, and that is right from a 5th generation fighter aircraft to a submarine, to a strategic submarine, to an aircraft carrier, to tanks, light tanks. There is a prospect, and that is where a large number of startups have come and they are being engaged by the Ministry of Defence under various programs. Earlier DRDO was the one which was only engaging in the Technology Demonstration Fund, which was a sizable amount, but we realized that there are young startups, young university students or pass outs who want to do much more. They have knowledge, they have commitment, and because the ecosystem was not right, they were all falling into the lap of foreign companies, and their solution we were then buying at 50 times the cost. So that is when the IDEX scheme was launched by the Ministry of Defence, and the IDEX scheme was essentially for these young youth. During Def Expo and during Aero India, a lot of MOUs have been signed, a lot of encouragement has been given to these startups. In Delhi, in an event which was named Swavlamban, most appropriately called Swavlamban, Indian Navy threw open 75 challenges for indigenization, which the Prime Minister launched himself in the month of June. And within 3 months of that, the Prime Minister in Gandhinagar opened up another 75 challenges for defense space. What is defense space? So far, everyone has heard only of ISRO talking about outer space, but now we realize that ISRO cannot be left open where they get targeted by various sanctions if something goes wrong. So that is when a parallel structure has been created, and defense space, which is meant for defense, has been opened up to the private industry, which in October 20, the Prime Minister himself inaugurated online, or rather October 21. And he had about 7 private entrepreneurs with whom he shared the stage, and he told them, okay, go ahead, create an ecosystem for space to be utilized. Many people have possibly missed this out. I want to just allay your fears that things are moving in the right direction. And the first launch by a private entrepreneur, that's a startup, has already happened. And what exactly has happened in that? Launch on demand and things like that. Space has to be kept secure. At the same time, space has to become an energizing factor for national growth and security. Launch on demand is something where even if our satellites are knocked down, we should be capable of launching satellites immediately. It may sound simple, it is not. You need solid fuel rockets to put satellites in orbit, different kinds of orbits. And we are already working towards that. Different types of payloads have already been worked out. But then what are the challenges? There are still certain components which are critical and we do not have the know-how for those. So what do we do? That is where strategic partnerships, which are not spoken of openly, have to be entered into. A nation which has to keep its interests safe should not be talking everything openly. So there are strategic partnerships which are done, again under the ambit of strategic autonomy. So India is quite reluctant, and wisely so, to get into strategic alliances. But strategic partnerships are extremely important because those will fill the voids that we have, and as we keep filling those voids, we will keep getting stronger and stronger, and soon, because of the talent that we have, the commitment that we have, we shall be able to become strong, self-reliant, and when a country becomes strong, that is when it can exercise leverages over rest of the world. In any case, the Indian image is so good that even when we are not so strong, number of countries want to engage with us, and that is the plus point that we have. I would have loved to go on and on, but the paucity of time, I would like to conclude here. In the end, I would remember Shri Manohar Parrikar once again. I would thank Honorable Chief Minister, Honorable Governor, Honorable Minister who's here, or rather who just left, for their gracious presence for my talk. And a very big thank you to Finns for having given me this opportunity to talk to you. And a very big thank you to the audience also. Jai Hind.